So here's one of those fight scenarios that you know isn't going to be easy to simulate. It depends in what time period we choose to pit these two against each other. I mean, we could do the Phantom Menace, Anakin versus Darth Maul, in which we know the answer. Anakin would, no, Darth Maul would obviously just destroy Anakin. He was like 9 years old, what do you expect? We could also do Vader Anakin versus Darth Maul in Rebels, to which we know Anakin would win since he was very powerful after the dark side turn. But Maul had become old, yet experienced, so maybe it wouldn't be as easy as we think. I think Anakin during Revenge of the Sith against Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace is the fight that we're going to look for today. So, who will it be? Who will win? We've got the Chosen One versus arguably one of the most rage-filled Sith to ever live. The Zabrak that survived being cut in half and falling down a shaft has some of the most aggressive fighting styles that we've ever seen in Star Wars. Trained in the 7th lightsaber fighting style, Maul was using the most aggressive fighting form there was, full of acrobatics and powerful offensive strikes. He was the type of Force user you wouldn't want to encounter because his hunger for blood was absolutely insatiable. Maul didn't use much of the Force prior to the Clone Wars, at least, in comparison. He was more of a savage. He liked to be up close and personal, to feel his blade cut through his enemy as he looked them in the eyes until their last breath. Anakin was one of the best Jedi who ever lived. His potential would have made him the best without question. The Chosen One had the potential to either keep the galaxy in a state of peace or turn it into the Imperial Galactic Empire that we all know him to have done. It all rested on his shoulders, on his choice. Anakin knew the path to the dark side was a tempting one, and it would unlock his many powers and questions that he had buried within himself. His lightsaber fighting style was that of Form 5 Demso. This fighting style was particularly more so on the offensive than defensive, which was more like Obi-Wan's Sorsu style. Anakin was very powerful in the Force. Qui-Gon even said so himself. His midichlorians were more than Master Yoda's at 20,000, even at the age of 9. Maul's wasn't anywhere near this, so we'll have to take personality, Force powers, and attributes into play here. Maul was brutal. He was the prehistoric era's equivalent to a Neanderthal. He was super strong, super fast, very battle-hardened, and Sidious always used to torture him, so he was quite used to pain. He wouldn't go down without a fight. If he were to fight Anakin with his lightsaber, it would be a tough call. Maul would use his acrobatics and speed to throw Anakin off guard, which would allow him an opening, but the thing was, Anakin didn't really get off guard, at least not when it came to Revenge of the Sith. He simply just kept going like a bulldozer. Now, Anakin is a particular case, and I'm going to explain it more in this video. So, to say, first of all here, his fast yet powerful strikes would prove to be a difficult fight for Maul, but it wouldn't be, a winner right away. Anakin is so good at double-handed attacks while seamlessly switching his style to a very fluid and smooth one-handed style is something that would throw anyone off guard. Maul would, however, confuse Anakin with his double blade, as he twirled and would attempt to use his hilt to hit Anakin in the face like he did Qui-Gon to get the finishing strike. But Anakin was younger and much more angry than Qui-Gon. He'd bounce back from the attack without being stunned, especially since he knew how Qui-Gon died. Now, when Anakin was a mere Padawan, he used to train with the training droids in the Jedi Temple. However, he'd program them to look and fight exactly like Darth Maul. If you haven't seen my video on this, here is a little bit, and I'm going to put a timestamp so that you can skip it. During the comic, we see the scene of Jedi Masters Mace Windu and Obi-Wan Kenobi, along with Chancellor Palpatine, atop the balcony in the Jedi Temple, observing Anakin's lightsaber training with a battle droid. I'll also note that this was the first time Palpatine officially met Anakin and took him away from Obi-Wan in the creepiest way possible, which I made a video on as well a few weeks ago. During Anakin's battle, as other Padawans watched on the ground level along with his peers above, as Anakin glances to them to make sure they're watching him, he turns the dial on the simulator machine to a configuration he had pre-programmed himself, transforming the droid to look, move, and fight just like what appears to be an old Sith assassin, igniting a double-bladed lightsaber. The page jumps to Mace Windu asking Obi-Wan, "What is he doing? Is that?" insinuating that it looks remarkably just like Darth Maul. Obi-Wan replies, confirming, "Anakin's been asking me about my fight with the Sith on Naboo. Very detailed questions, but I assumed it was just natural curiosity. I had no idea he would," where he's cut off by Palpatine, and I'll just add in here quickly. So Anakin did ask everything there is to know about Maul, his fighting style, movements, even his unique weapon of choice, This truly shows a deeper understanding of Anakin's interest to learn as much as he could about Darth Maul and the Sith in general, even from a young age. Now, Obi-Wan, Mace, and the Chancellor all observed from above, where Obi-Wan told them that Anakin asked every detail about the fight on Naboo between himself and the Zabrak. Annie then obviously went to program the training droid to be a non-force sensitive of Darth Maul, and when he was a Padawan, he would absolutely destroy the droid each time. Now, I have the answer to this, but I think it's important to discuss how this could proceed. Now, with Force powers. If we took Maul during the Clone Wars, then Anakin would have a harder time, since Maul's Force powers during the Clone Wars were extremely powerful, such as when he took down that ship. Regardless of when, Maul was a tank when it came to how much damage that he could take. Sidious tortured him regularly to keep him obedient and in pain, therefore trapped further in the dark side. Now, Anakin's Force powers were on par with Obi-Wan's in Revenge of the Sith, which is saying a lot since Obi-Wan was about 16 years older than Anakin and had trained for way longer in his life. This isn't to say that Anakin's Force abilities in Episode 3 were comparable to Obi-Wan's in Episode 1, so let's be sure not to confuse that. Maul's powers, even if it were Maul during the Clone Wars, were not comparable to Anakin's or Kenobi's. So Anakin wins on Force powers as well. Now, take that bit with a grain of salt when I say it wasn't comparable to Obi-Wan's. It really depends on factor and timing. Now it comes down to personality. So here's the thing. Anakin is kind of like this sleeping giant, or at least I think he is. Not that he's slow or dopey or anything, but his real powers are dormant until he gets mad. For example, in my opinion, Anakin right after his mother died versus Anakin versus Dooku in Episode 2 were two very different Anakins. I think Anakin would still have lost against Dooku regardless, but he wouldn't have lost as badly. Maybe, he would have kept his arm, and definitely he would have had a better chance at winning if he was engulfed with the dark side. Literally, just replace those Tusken Raiders outside of the camp right after Anakin's mom dies and put Dooku there. Fun fact, it was actually alluded in one of the books and original scripts that Dooku was the one who put that entire thing together with the Sand People capturing Anakin's mother. Now, Anakin couldn't beat Dooku until his dark side was enticed by the Count to be revealed. Once it did, Dooku was at Anakin's mercy within seconds. Of course, once Episode 3 happened, and Anakin was a lot stronger. That said, Maul was constantly awakened. His every breath made him more angry and full of rage. The powers of his lust for Jedi blood made him stronger. He lived in the suffering of the dark side, and if that wasn't enough, it was his resolve to live so that he could kill with unstoppable anger. Again, the guy got cut and sliced in half and then fell down a shaft, only to still live and come back. Now, I'm going to put in this little excerpt from one of my favorite canon Darth Maul comics where Sidious takes him to this planet where, well, you guys will see. Darth Maul actually inhales and ingests dead and charred, basically barbecued Jedi. This is just how ruthless and crazy and insane and gross he was when it came to defeating his enemy, to the point where he actually, sort of ingested them. Check this out. So, he takes Maul to the Sith temple on the planet Malachor. This is also where in Rebels Vader fought Ahsoka. The mysterious planet is a demolished wasteland where a battle between the Jedi and Sith took place thousands of years prior. Known as the Great Scourge of Malachor, it ended when a superweapon was activated, causing everyone there to be instantly charged into stony fossils forever, frozen in terror-stricken poses. In Maul's youth, it was here he was first exposed to the sins of the Jedi. Sidious explains that the ashes of their fallen brethren holds more than one lesson, and so he has Maul consume some of the ashes off of these petrified statuette figures to let the dark side flow into him, granting him a vision. Suddenly, Maul is no longer on Malachor, but in a green field and wearing the brown robes of a Jedi. I'll have to give it to Maul in this scenario because Anakin's resolve was conditional. It really depended on what or who he was fighting for. He always did his best, don't get me wrong here at all, but he was dependent on what he was fighting for. Was it against a droid army, or was it for Padme, or for his mother? Surely his emotions in the dark side would come out stronger during each scenario here. Now, to make it fair, if let's say Maul kidnapped Padme and he was about to kill her, I think Anakin would unlock some Super Saiyan godly tier mode power or something like that and just wipe out the entire galaxy. His powers grew with every second that he was submersed within the dark side, but as we saw, so did his arrogance, which was his downfall. So all in all, I would have to say Anakin would beat Maul. It would not be easy, don't get me wrong, and it would definitely be harder than fighting General Grievous, because, you know, Maul is Maul, and he's Force sensitive, and Grievous isn't, but not as hard as fighting Mace Windu, and maybe slightly less difficult as fighting Obi-Wan, since we know Obi-Wan beat him twice. That being said, if Anakin was subjected to the high ground, and you know, it's a bit of a toss-up. Let me know what you all think about this fantasy fight. Would Maul get the higher ground on Anakin, or would it not even matter in this scenario? I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you want to see next. I've got a new series again coming out for you guys, and I hope you guys will enjoy this one. It's going to be a little bit different. Stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.
Now, fulfill your destiny.